The sun blazed mercilessly over Ouagadougou that afternoon, heat waves shimmering above the streets as President Ibrahim Traoré stepped out of the presidential palace. His security detail closed in around him, cameras snapped, and journalists hurled questions his way. But Traoré wasn't paying attention to any of it. His gaze had locked onto one person standing by the palace gates, a striking woman, tall, with flawless ebony skin and eyes that burned with fierce determination. In her hands, she held a sign, bold and clear. "I came for you, Ibrahim Traoré. Marry me." The guards moved to push her back, but she didn't flinch. "I'm not leaving until he talks to me," she declared, her American accent cutting through the air. Traoré raised a hand, signaling his guards to stand down. The woman stepped forward, chin held high, shoulders steady. "My name is Maya Taylor," she said, her gaze locking onto his. "I came all the way from New York to be your second wife." For a moment, time seemed to stop. Traoré's jaw dropped, his advisors exchanged uneasy glances. The crowd buzzed, some laughing in disbelief, others watching in stunned silence. Traoré took a slow breath. "Maya, you can't just show up here and ask for marriage. Why are you doing this?" Maya took a step closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I've followed your story, your rise, your fight for your people. I know your heart, Ibrahim, and I know mine. You need a strong woman by your side, and I am that woman." He shook his head, almost unable to believe what he was hearing. "You don't even know me." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her voice remained steady. "I know enough, and I won't leave until you say yes." Traoré glanced around, the curious faces, the wary eyes of his advisors, the weight of power pressing down on him. This woman had just shaken his world. And she wasn't done yet. Inside the palace, tension hung thick in the air. Maya Taylor sat alone in the opulent lounge, her gaze fixed on the massive double doors. Outside, Traoré paced, his mind racing. "What does she want?" Malik, one of his closest men, muttered. "She appears out of nowhere, asking to be your wife." Traoré rubbed his temples. "She came from so far. This isn't just a whim." Malik leaned in, his voice low. "What if she's a spy, or a distraction, sent by our enemies?" Traoré shook his head slowly. "No." I looked into her eyes. She meant every word. He took a deep breath, gathering himself before pushing open the lounge doors. Maya's face lit up as he entered, though he kept his expression guarded. "Maya, why are you doing this? Why would you give up your life to come here?" She met his gaze, steady as stone. "You want the truth." Traoré gave a slight nod. She leaned forward, her voice soft, but every word hitting like a drumbeat. "I saw your rise, your courage, the way you stood for your people, no matter the risk. You're a man of justice. And I fell in love with that man." Traoré's jaw clenched. "You can't love someone you don't know." Maya swallowed, her voice trembling for the first time. "I know it sounds insane, but I was engaged back in New York to a powerful man. He wanted me for business, not for love. He was cruel, controlling then. One night I saw a video of you in a dusty village, promising the children they'd never go hungry again. You didn't care about cameras, or titles, or suits, only them." Traoré's expression softened. He remembered that day. Maya's voice cracked as she finished. "That's when I knew I couldn't stay, couldn't marry a man I didn't love, and I couldn't ignore what I felt for you." The room fell silent. Traoré leaned back, his mind a storm of doubt, admiration, and something else. "You realize my life isn't a fairy tale. I have enemies. I think that enemies. People trying to kill me every day." Maya smiled through glistening eyes. "Then let me fight beside you." Before Traoré could respond, the doors burst open. A guard ran in, breathless. "Mr. President, there's been a security breach. Someone tried to break into Maya Taylor's hotel room. They were after her passport." The blood drained from Traoré's face. Someone wanted her gone, but why? And the real question, who? Maya sat alone, in her palace room, her eyes locked on the glowing screen of her phone. A news article stared back at her, and the headline made her stomach twist. "Darius Monroe exposes fugitive Maya Taylor. He'd painted her as a thief, a con artist, a runaway criminal." The comments underneath were worse. "Gold digger, liar, desperate woman," each word cut like a knife. A sudden knock made her jump. "It's me," came Traoré's deep, steady voice from the other side of the door. Maya hesitated, then opened it. Traoré stepped inside, his face unreadable, his arms crossed. "Why didn't you tell me about Darius?" he asked, his voice low and sharp. Maya's shoulders sagged under the weight of his stare. I thought, if I could just reach you, I could start over. I didn't think he'd follow me here. Traoré's gaze hardened, eyes cold, calculating. You've put yourself and me in the crosshairs of a very dangerous man. Do you even realize what you've done? Maya took a step closer, her eyes glassy with tears. I came for you, Ibrahim. You're the only man I've ever truly loved, and the only one who can protect me from Darius. His jaw tightened. Or maybe you came here to use me as your shield. Her lips trembled. You think I'm lying? Before Traoré could respond, the door burst open. Malik stood there, pale, breathless. Mr. President, we have a situation. Darius Monroe just arrived in Ouagadougou. He's holding a press conference. Maya's heart dropped. Why, she whispered. Without wasting a second, Traoré and Malik rushed to the media room. The giant screen flickered to life, revealing Darius Monroe standing at a podium. International journalists packed around him. Good afternoon, Darius began, adjusting his tie with a smug, calculated smile. I'm here to inform the world, he continued, his voice smooth and controlled, that Maya Taylor, the woman who entered the presidential palace of Burkina Faso, is an international fugitive. Reporters erupted, shouting questions. Darius raised a hand, relishing the attention. She stole millions from my company, broke off our engagement contract, and fled the United States to escape justice. He paused for dramatic effect. And now, he said with a smug grin, she's manipulating an African head of state to shield herself from the law. In the media room, silence fell like a stone. Traoré clenched his fists, his eyes glued to the screen. Behind him, Maya's face went pale. That's a lie, she shouted, her voice cracking under the strain. He's lying. He controlled me. He beat me. He's doing this because I escaped him. Traoré turned to look at her, torn between doubt and the memory of the woman who had stood so fearlessly before him at the palace gates. Slowly, he turned to Malik. Verify everything, he ordered. Her past, his past, dig deep. I want the truth, now, hours later. Malik returned to the presidential office, a thick folder clutched in his hands. Mr. President, we found it all. He laid the documents on the desk. Maya was telling the truth. Darius covered up multiple domestic abuse cases, paid off victims, buried police reports. She tried to report him more than once, but his lawyers made sure it never saw daylight. She's innocent. Traoré exhaled slowly, then turned to Maya, who sat quietly with her hands clasped, waiting. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice softer now. She lifted her head. Because I didn't want you to see me as a victim, she whispered. I came here to build something new, not to run away. He stepped closer, eyes searching hers. And now, what do you want? A tear slipped down her cheek as she met his gaze. I want to love you and help you protect your people, even if I have to do it from the shadows. He studied her face for a long moment then. Finally, he reached out his hand. Then do it with me, he said, but this time for real, outside Public Square, the next day. The sun hung high above Ouagadougou as Maya and Traoré stepped into the public square together. A crowd had gathered, cameras rolled, the flag of Burkina Faso waved proudly in the background. Traoré raised his hand and the murmuring crowd fell silent. People of Burkina, he began, his voice firm and resolute. This woman risked her life for the truth. I don't need to justify her courage, but I choose to honor it. The crowd erupted in applause. Cheers echoed through the square. And elsewhere, in a dimly lit hotel room, Darius Monroe hurled his glass against the wall in a fit of rage, the sound of shattering glass lost beneath the roar of a city that no longer belonged to him.